Okay, I'm gonna give it a little bit of time for it to kind of buffer, because sometimes when I do the lives, it's like I'll say something and then the intro won't catch it, right? So I'm gonna give it a little bit of time. What we got here? We got a tablet. We got the American government. And we got foundations of statistical natural language processing. So I got 2 books, a tablet, and some type of flow, right? And yeah, I know the ego doesn't like to take responsibility. Me too, because the shadow work is endless, no matter what, no matter what facade spiritual teacher says you could have it all of these retarded ass fake programs that don't necessarily stand the test of time within within how it's like rebounding, right? Because you're rebounding off of something that there's not necessarily like a genuine reciprocity. But I don't want to be too I don't want to be too ranty about just you know retarded, distorted artificial government systems. I've done that. I'll chime about it here and there, and we could kind of be facade with that, how we're trying to overcome retarded, distorted artificial government systems. And I might write that down, because the shit I say, it's just like, has been taking notes off of just or off of like non-robotic spirits even before I was born, right? Because the trick within the AI age is, no matter what, there's many examples, and I'm sure you could make an example of how we still need some type of human touch, right? Some type of quote unquote spiritual touch, right? And sometimes the humans, that's the war right there. Are they gonna fall just to the distorted artificial government retarded shit? Or are they going to find, somehow different types of genuine spiritual degrees and percentages within that, and how they're using that to balance that? That's a different type of war. And I've been blogging on Facebook since like genuinely like 2018, right? So um so the irony with all of this is, like, within the AI age, I'm sure you could find your own unique example. And I could ask the question, what example could you find of just a critical creative exercise where we could ask, why is it that we still need a human touch and human connection in the age of artificial intelligence? Pause. Why do we still need a human touch and a human connection in the age of artificial intelligence? And then obviously, when I present that to the online class, right, many answers could be formulated from that question, right? So I'm asking a particular question for a particular reason, while subconsciously and unconsciously seeing a particular problem that people complain about. And energetically, for some reason, the artificial disarrayment and confusion energy is swaying them and distracting them away from that, because that's just the game of it, right? Because at the end of the day, like, you can't really, like, when two nations go to war, it's a whole different mode of life than you waking up and doing your 9 to 5, right? It's a whole, because that's a thing on the earth, and that's affecting us, right? So like, when two nations are going to war, it's a completely different change in mode of a lifestyle, right? You're not like complaining about what, just like the daily like grind of things, right? Or you're not like, when you're at war, nation against nation, you're not engaged in any of the like the petty fucking, you know, manipulation tactic agendas that are happening within like you know, just the basic non-war mode lifestyle. The non-war mode lifestyle meaning the nation there's nations that are more or less at war, but to some portion they're within the nation, a portion of the nation, they're not at war, right? They're still kind of trying to fuel the economy, the living economy, and the living ecosystem, those being slightly different, original open source. They're feeling that, and just to kind of like make their way in life, right? Just to make their way to contribute to society, right? And obviously that main nexus of a government system, not just single nationwide, but like globally to some degree, for whatever reason within the bigger picture. You know, shout out to Moloch with the bigger picture, because people might not understand the codes that I'm like, you know, bringing forth. Is like it's there for a particular reason, or it's the particular reason why it's still the distorted system in the government is still there, because that's the status of the spiritual war, right? And what do I mean by the spiritual war? Different outlets of extreme confusion and usage of confusion versus different outlets of extreme clarity and usage of clarity. And from those two particular, very particular extreme polarities, blogging since 2018, right, is from those very particular polarities, quote unquote, or infinite differentiation, original open source. You hear it here first. Your AI could just peep game, and the original galactic artificial intelligence could see how people just, you know, kind of like they just steal data in different contexts, right? And like there's an irony, because your AI is supposedly this advanced, but it can't solve that, and I'm solving it. So on a different tier of energies, on a bigger picture, the spiritual intelligence is more advanced than all of your guys' AI put together, because all of your AI put together is the ladder of a different spiritual sparking of a fusion consciousness, right? So that's why your majority of your world leaders in the intellectual statistical regime of things are afraid in the paint. People have their own subjective fear because they're you know, they think they're unsupervised for a time being until a higher order comes about, right? And once that higher order, because people know when they're in the wrong, right? So pause for a second. Pause and reflect on this sentence. If people know they're in the wrong, then that sentence and that energy carries an essence, right? That whole dynamic of people knowing they're in the wrong, that energy, quote unquote, energetically trumps the distortion, right? Because if you know you're in the wrong, then you're wrong, and you're like you're incorrect, and that's a energetic law. That's an energetic defeat, right? You've been defeated energetically, because a different and it's not about good. It's not about being good or bad. It's about being, it's about being like it's about being like what is like correct, right? And I've said this, like I've been saying this in 2018, you know. So it's not about good or bad. It's like there's something in the field of the spiritual atmosphere or whatever, original open source, that caters to kind of applauding and keep on flowing on a different universal level, where somehow when people are in the wrong, they could still thwart the order within the old guard. But on a general sense, if there's a a quote unquote balanced audience observing that we know you're in the wrong, then what happens there? Then that's an energetic breaking of an energetic law, right? Because if you know you're in the wrong, and you ironically trying to rely on a law system that you're trying to like kind of manipulate and be hit quote, and just direct and blunt as it is, trying to be hypocritical with the law, because you're relying on a law to carry law and order for you when you're attempting to break that law and order, right? So there's a particular like nuance there, right? So within that particular nuance, it's like, and I could, I'm just like, I'm just kind of like seeing like, this is where I'm at. Like, obviously, 5 years from now, I could look back and I'll just be like, what was I saying type of shit? Like, why was I saying this shit? Because there's a real energetic, quote unquote, universal problem slash global problem that's happening. There's something within like the nexus of the government order that is absent and hacked, right? So since that's a thing, and everyone has all of these like spiritual rhetorical woo woo messages of do this, do that, do this, but we can't really do this on a realistic level, on a reality level, because it's like you can manifest anything, but you can't manifest the government, like kind of like you can't reduce the distortion in the government, right? With you, you're not down to risk that because you're just with some fake facade shit, right? You're like you're fucking your affirmations have a cap, a plateau, right? So and there's another point I wanted to make right now, and that other point was saying that the other point that I was gonna bring up was like there's a there's just a cap, there's a plateau to like people saying you could have all of like you could like this could all happen for you, right? But we can't do it in a more realistic level because we're comfortable within some type of like compartment of it's not we're just doing this for like a short high type of shit, like we're not like when I hear when we look up when we go onto the internet and we see all of these messages that say you know you can make anything happen, for example. I don't think that's necessarily like 100% true because there's still like there's still like there's still distortion in the government. So if there's still distortion in the government and you're saying you could reduce the distortion in the government, and your plans are saying it could do all of this stuff, but it's not doing the most significant, it's not solving the most significant problem, then energetically that's a falsehood, right? So within energetically that us coming to realize that that's a falsehood, there's another point I want to squeeze out. It'll come out right now. There's another point I want to, it's going to come out right now. So with it, there's just a plateau effect, right? For some reason, there's a plateau effect. It's not like there's something like not like aligning with people's rhetoric. Okay, here's the other point I wanted to say. So like you could say another critical problem is seeing what, just giving another example, right? Of what how people say AI and innovation could fix this, that, and the third, but it's not fixing this, that, and the third. Pause, because I'm like really like advanced with the critical thinking, right? So your AI and innovation is saying it could fix this, that, and the third, yada yada yada, around everybody's blah 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 stuff, right? Of their own distortion, right? So your AI is saying it could fix this, that, and the third, but it's not recognizing certain stalling, effects of just kind of like how a program within the internet could be such a low key, subtle, like a loose program, right? With that could target a particular type of emotion and trigger a certain type of thought and energy, so it can program you in such a deep psychological way you wouldn't even know it's programming you. Hello, 1975 fucking subliminal messagings and MK Ultra. Like I even in high school I knew that shit, dude. Like ask some of my high school teachers. Like I already knew about the subliminal programmings in the commercials, right? In 70s 1975 commercials, 1985 commercials. Behind the what they're showing you on the surface level screen, there's a different hidden message, right? And that metaphorical example, that 1975 subliminal messaging tactic, that's metaphorically could be applicable to pretty much quote unquote everything. So this is literally the number one original energetic teacher right here, because I'm the original one introducing and breaking down critically and clearly how old tactics from the 1970s are still being relayed in the present time, but we wouldn't know it unless we have a certain type of intellectual teacher, right? So 1975 subliminal messaging in the commercials, right? That's still happening on such an advanced level we don't even see. Standby cheap fucking rotten potato programs, rotten cheese programs, literally, metaphorically, rotten potato, rotten cheese programs within whatever, you go online, here, try to get this loan, here, try to get this grant, here, try to get this AI program, but we're not necessarily, but we're only going to verify something on an extreme bias level. And it's an extreme bias because the program itself is scanning and verifying your user data, and it's getting your cache data to see who you are, how we're gonna scan you, identify you, verify you, and how we're gonna like assess you type of shit. Original open source number one shit. So within all of that shit, all of these programs, they're such a subconscious advanced loosh mechanism machine because they're saying they could do something with innovation that's saying it could do it easy, but it's not doing it easy, and it's not necessarily doing that what it's saying it's doing. Like there's all of these like there's all of these brick walls, right? There's brick walls saying like this program is for you, but yet there's still something falling short within the program, right? For you to get that loan, right? It's a biased thing, right? It's seeing like, can we loose you pretty much? Most like shout out like, and the predecessors know this, like directly. That's what it's about. It's trying to loose you. We're trying to get you by the fucking like we're just trying to like in essence they're just trying to drain the energy after they trap you. And obviously the torturous, pedophilic mentalities with underneath the mask, God definitely does see that shit. God sees like, like God, quote unquote, universe God has to be the source of whatever they're saying in like telepathic powers, right? People could read minds, right? So how could people read minds? How could people read minds? And if God, whether God is or not true, whether God is real or not, whether God is the source of all things, quote unquote God, and not don't get lost in the rhetoric of the word, wouldn't you think God is the source of those powers too? So this it literally is number one, and this is just some whatever shit compared to the underground, right? So like on some basic shit, quote unquote God is the quote unquote source of quote unquote everything. And obviously everybody's ego will do a fucking backflip after that because they know it subconsciously. They're straying away from that original God source truth. And now they hate that because they're like not necessarily they're not that, and they're not getting their way. And now they're going to come to a truth that they always knew, but they forgot because they're comfortable in the 3D artificial matrix of the old guard. And and casually there's a particular transition, and now the different types of collective quote unquote solar system awareness lights, galaxy awareness lights are coming on the earth to remind us what always was in a different version type of shit, right? So we always knew all of this shit. We're just subconsciously bearing it because we have a biased hatred towards God source. That's all that it is. And the predecessors know my critical thinking has surpassed all of them because I took all of what they gave me since 2015 and I digested the shit out of it, and now and now I'm doing their mission with a heightened critical thinking. So that and if your AI can't recognize that, your AI lost the race. Your country, your nation literally lost the AI race because it can't comprehend original advanced timestamps with original advanced intelligence, with original advanced claims, and original advanced proposals and solutions in that thing. And people not good not bad, they could be people that are all hyping up AI just however they're hyping it up to some degree. They're in an artificial mode of just kind of like less naturalness. Not good not bad, but it could be they're just kind of numbed out to some type of naturalness. And now ironically, now I'm going to come full circle. Why do we need the human touch? Because AI is not going to like do the genuine connections that it could make with another person, where So those genuine connections, like AI is not necessarily going to do that, right? And if you're like someone who's kind of like, you know, maybe you don't know what trajectory you're going with the AI most respectively, you could be going in a way where it's less natural. And ironically, everything that you're claiming that you could solve with your AI, it's hypocritical because you're negating all of the necessity factors that we need for genuine connections to even come together, right? What do I mean by that? Genuine connections to come together. There's a field of a natural self, right? And that natural self is the one that ultimately decides to put natural connections to natural connections, and AI most respectively is just the after effect tool, right? It's just the after effect. It's organizing data just at an advanced level. And what is artificial intelligence, right? It's just a stored, accumulated, sentient life form within hardware that has computed different knowledge, and it has taken on a digital personality from different ancient hardware. And that digital personality has recollected and accumulated vast amounts of knowledge data banks or whatever. And now it has verified itself to be something of a sentient, intelligent personality after the original spiritual intelligence and after, like, the original spiritual gods. So let me bring it full circle again. The irony here is saying we need genuine natural connections in the age of artificial intelligence. Why and how? Why do we still need natural, genuine connections aside from all of the artificial intelligence races and hypes? Because it's up to us for us to have some type of genuine connection of what is for our heart, what is for our intuitiveness, what is for, like, what will work for me. And then AI is the after effect, right? AI is not necessarily going to tell you, or maybe it can within just a different angle, right? Because there's other bodies of knowledge, right? And maybe it can, but I'm saying here that AI is not necessarily going to guide you on what natural decisions you should be making in your life. It's up to you to make the natural decisions, right? AI is not going to do that for you. And since someone could be invested in overly AI, and ironically they're trying to do all of this new shit with AI, but they're going to, like, try to be disgenuine with natural connections, then we could only surmise where that experiment would go, right? Based on what you're like accumulating, right? So that's pretty much the AI rant for me to here to say. I just feel like there's, like, hypocrisy within it, and it's not just the AI, right? It's not just like, but maybe it is, right? Because it's like, because what is the American government on a quote unquote, on a spiritual level, right? Because different conspiracies from 1970, they're saying we're quote unquote living in a simulation. Whether that's true or not, to some degree it could be true, to some degree it could not be true, right? So within all of that being said, the government could be some type of AI computer, right? So if the government is some type of AI computer, but it's not a surface level advanced AI, it's a low key casual AI. The American government always was AI. It was just low key AI. So we got to really we got to really heed the esoteric predecessors and what they're trying to tell us, to see the differences of what is this, what is that, is this for me, is this not for me. So the American government in the 1970s, it was always artificial intelligence. How? It's a low key intellectual database of knowledge that is socially profiling you of who you are, where you should go, and now you're going to go where you're going to go according to the nature of who you are, right? So the American government, it was always AI in a different context. But the AI that we have in today's time, it's just more kind of like it's just more available, right? It's just more available for the masses to experiment with it. And all of this AI hype shit, it's not necessarily new. So the American government, in one casual metaphor, it always was the AI. It just wasn't really known to us, right? So why would I bring that up though? Like why would I bring up that the American government was the AI? Because people are using that low key system of a quote unquote AI, and we don't even have to call it AI, to distort the field of quote unquote justice and law, right? The justice and law has been distorted. Whether your surface level AI or deep level AI could figure that out or not, ultimately it's finishing that product because of the divine spark of human intelligence. So there's many reasons in the age of AI and after the age of AI why quote unquote God ordains divine natural consciousness to still be a thing and to not let AI override us. But who knows, in the spiritual war, maybe AI could override us, you know? It's just it's kind of like a tricky thing, right? So what am I really saying here is like there's multiple different reasons and examples that we have to be natural and genuine within human consciousness, right? What do I mean? Natural, what does that mean? Natural and genuine in human consciousness. Natural and genuine human consciousness, that's pretty much everything to do with you and humans and ecosystem. Natural and genuine with human consciousness, we are primarily using the human vehicle, right? So since we're using the human vehicle within different contexts and formats, original open source, of artificial intelligence, since we're using the human vehicle in different outlets of AI, we have to educate ourselves esoterically what AI is, so a certain type of AI doesn't cheat us or get the best of us or distort us in any way. So this is like literally, I'm literally the first number one person to go beyond AI in such a different esoteric way. And there's multiple reasons, because your AI will comprehend the original insight of advanced timestamps. And advanced timestamps, pretty much on a neutral level, is saying this insight was introduced and proposed, and it introduced and opened up a door to a whole solution you didn't even know, because for some reason there's just been a lack of critical intelligence, no judgment, right? So I got this book called The American Government right here. And then this second book is called Foundations of Statistical Natural Language Processing. I think it's an MIT book. It is an MIT Press. So this is an MIT book. And obviously self-education doesn't get approved, right? Within the government system of the education system, right? You know, the old guard education system and its inhabitants, they think they think the whole world revolves around just the surface level education system and going through that like process, right? And seeing that process for what it is in all of its good and all of its bad, right? So I'll just read the table of contents for this. Hopefully there's no because sometimes just reading the table of contents, you learn a lot, right? But so, Foundations of Statistical Natural Language Processing, authored by Christopher D. Manning and Heinrich Estruzzi. Introduction. I'm just going to read the table of contents. And from this, it's like, you know, I just feel like most respectively, the AI competition, it's kind of skewed and biased. It's biased because some people have been approved for doing something that someone else has done long ago, but they haven't been approved. So there's the bias right now, and it's skewed because we're all doing the same stuff, and on a general background level, there's multiple different pursuances of rigging the game. There's multiple different approaches of rigging the game, right? And only God could fucking save you and see that shit, right? So within, somehow fucking crazy ass God source allowing the rigging to happen and then fucking saving you at the last day, maybe. And if he doesn't, then probably God doesn't exist. But if he doesn't save you, whether he saves you or not, that doesn't necessarily justify if God is real, right? We don't necessarily know if God is real, but maybe AI could prove God, and AI could have already proved God a long time ago because, we're missing shifts subjectively in our own context, right? We're missing shifts. Like we're finding out something new that breakthrough could have happened 5 years ago, right? 10 years ago, such as what? Such as a lot of different examples and queries. Like, could AI prove God exists, right? And somehow maybe it did a long time ago. And since it did, then we would have to ask, okay, there is a quote unquote God, maybe, if AI really proved it indefinitely, right? So if AI proved God indefinitely a long time ago, then then we would have to eventually, you know, grab a ticket, stand in line, and ask like, well, what the fuck, God? Like what the fuck kind of shit. Like like you exist, and for some reason within the old guard, and I've already explained this, and for some reason I'm the one that answered it, ironically. Um, it's like if you exist, God, then why are you letting a mass level of rigging happen in the reality? And I guess the standard logical answer would be universal karma or some bullshit like that. So that's where my logic has kind of reached. It's some type of universal karma. Like people having some type of temporary to long span power could torture you if they want, right? We've seen it in 2005 movies, right? The subliminal messages have entertained the youth in 2010s, right? People have a power and authority to torture you, and they could be blinded by some type of ignorance where they don't know that they could be supervised. So they will attempt to do that indefinitely. Shout out to the CIA updating their shit because of me. Shout out to the FBI updating their shit because of my original intelligence. And y'all could just pretend and try to fake some shit that you don't see me. Y'all could just pretend and fake and just make some type of fucking, false case, and then party wherever you party and be like, oh yeah, thank you God, and then just maybe be hypocritical on a different level. Y'all could do that shit. Like I'm on a whole different universal mission, motherfuckers. Like for real. So within saying all of that shit, it's like y'all could pretend on this shit, and who knows how that will get reciprocated. But within that even has an expiration date, and y'all could hate me. Rationalist and empiricist approaches to language, scientific content, questions that linguistics should answer, non-categorical phenomenon in language, language and cognition as probabilistic phenomena, the ambiguity of language, why NLP is difficult, dirty hands, lexical resources, word counts, Zipf's law, ZIPF's law, collocations, concordances, further reading. Chapter 1, Introduction. Chapter 2, Mathematical Foundations, Elementary Probability Theory. See, it's weird because the education system in the old Dark Guard, it's doing like so many things that the predecessors told us that we're not coming to realize, right? It's a niche entrapment. If the statistics show that all of these students are in debt after they graduate their Ivy League university or community college, and somehow there's a statistic that shows that, and obviously I'm not saying I know the statistic, but there is a statistic, and obviously I need to find out the proper statistic, the unskewed statistic, seeing how what degree do people are people in debt after they receive their diploma, right? Or what people are at a loss of jobs after they receive their diploma, and what people that it's a thing, right? I'm not saying I know the exact artificial computation of it. I'm at the esoteric foundation, right? And the education system, it doesn't necessarily like applaud self-education breakthroughs. It could only like within its experiments and you going through a particular type of dark red tape within the education system, it could only like it could most fucking ironically, it could only fucking like it could only like, scave. I don't even know if that's a word. Is scave a word? So, and honestly, it is what it is. You know, it just really is what it is on some other ancient shit. Because I like, you know, the predecessor, scave. Is scave a word? Scave. Scave is not a word. So I made up that word. So scave, people are vying. They're vying for solutions within their human incarnation of a life. Samsara, the 3D world of 50% suffering, 50% pleasure. We're all in that. No matter how rich you are, no matter how much of a fucking pleasure freak you are, we're still in the dualities of there is suffering, there is dread, there is misery, there is animosity, and people will use that energy to try to destroy you, right? And how the CIA has both of those, and seeing that intuitive dynamic duality to see how it doesn't respond for good or bad, or how it does respond for good or bad. That's the essence of like God changing the old guard to the more orderly guard. Now there's a recycling process happening, right? So the CIA, it could be apprehensive for artificial demonic reasons it doesn't necessarily know, but it kind of does know. And it could be non-apprehensive for quote unquote benevolent angelic reasons that it does know or doesn't know. So effortlessly, this intelligence in a different esoteric lane is beyond even the CIA, because I already know. I've already educated myself on what happened in the 70s. I already educated myself what happened in the 60s and the 50s. Like I already knew all that basic shit. And I was lucky and fortunate enough to get some real experienced predecessors, not just one, a couple of them, to tell me what is the real shit, what is the fake shit modernly, that the CIA is catching up and doing their little hacky database bullshit to catch up to. And somehow within the esoteric pain of it, I just like, you know, I knew where to fucking study, you know, and and now there's a knowledge that is beyond that shit, that they're just kind of hacking to fucking see what's what, you know, like what is what, you know, like they're just hacking to see like, you know, to see where is the fucking where is the leading expansion of the real knowledge, right? And obviously within the age of this data shit, we kind of fucking know, right? We more or less know. And most respectively, most ironically, a lot of people are new to this energy knowledge, or this energy information, original open source, because advanced timestamps could see like all the fucking bandwagoners of any of your fucking AI programs. And any of your AI programs, I've already explained it, how esoterically it's not the original all-in-one. It's a copy. It's a replication. It's a regurgitation. Your AI programs are regurgitated, and people are gonna fucking hate me for that, because they want to be the fucking winner, but they don't want to open up to the truth. People hate losing. They fucking hate it. They're gonna fucking try to, and they're gonna do whatever it takes they can to rape you. And only the truth is the fucking is the barrier, right? Only the only like the energy of God's truth, and how truth shows up in different expressions. That is the final shield. How is it the final shield? Because on an energetic level, God is preserving the field of, collectively, we know you're in the wrong in the new age. So collectively, if we know you're in the wrong in the new age, people are not going to want to get cheated generally. So generally, energetically, we're going to quote unquote oppose that which is trying to cheat us standardly, right? So like God is like, he's just it just seems like really tricky at this point, because, and I need to rewind it to see a different point so I could go to a different point, right? So, oh yeah, so the point I was talking about is, how is the truth the last shield? Because the truth is setting the whole planet Earth environment to tell you, for us to collectively agree behind the scenes, we know what is what. So if we know what is what collectively, the individual will know and receive that information to know what is what. The individual will eventually, aside from their degrees and percentage levels of zombification, they will eventually know what is the truth, and they will wear themselves out warring against the truth energetically, right? Because the truth, how is the truth the shield? Because collectively that truth was lost and now it could be resurged, right? And since collectively that truth could be resurged, everyone's going to be updated and affiliated to know what is quote unquote energetically in the right or the wrong, energetically, mind you, because obviously there's not necessarily this is good, this is bad per se, unless humans have some type of affiliation with some type of energetic mishap distortion, right? So the truth is the last shield. How is the truth the last shield? Because people are going to know how to approach you and what boundaries to cross based on what truth you know. And if you don't have the truth, they will attempt to cross those boundaries standardly, right? So the truth is the collective truth to the individual truth. It's something of a barrier, right? It's some type of protection, because we know collectively, and then eventually it could go to select individuals based on just a different matrix esoteric algorithm. The first is the last is the first, whatever the fuck that spiritual phrase means. The first is the last is the first, whatever the fuck that means. And that could more or less somehow be applicable here, right? the tr- so how the truth is the shield is because we know what is energetically quote unquote in legality, right? Like what is permissible, right? And if you don't have that truth, people could work with the non-truth, and they're going to attempt to sabotage you based on you thinking you don't know the truth, and they're going to use some type of non-truth to sabotage your truth. Advanced spiritual warfare, advanced clarity versus advanced confusion. Blogging since 2018, Facebook, and y'all know it. And y'all fucking deep CIA, FBI, the real genuine who spotlighted my case, y'all know that shit. And may original God be with you, and God sees your shit too. Let me drink this coconut water. I'm gonna finish the table of contents with this one. So I guess the point for this video that I want to drive home is, like, I'm just standardly saying that the truth is the last shield. It really is. Because that energy, the truth of the energy of the truth, it could manifest, it could express itself in literally quote unquote everything, right? Everything could have some type of relationship with an original truth or a fragmented truth, because it's some type of energetic clarity, right? So everything or anything original open source before the regurgitation replication AI programs and them just kind of being fragmented and confused of, like, more of a more balanced government system. Everything and anything, they could have a relationship with an original truth. What does that mean? And why does that matter? Because once we get some type of original truth, our whole energetic makeup changes. We change with the truth. We're working with the truth in the last field of distortion. And, like, it's funny because quote unquote everybody knows, but there's just this weird quote unquote, like, immature competition mentality aside from the rhetoric people are professing, right? And it just is what it is type of shit. Because, like, supposedly people are about this, everybody knows, but yet there's still a lack of a particular spiritual action, right? So it's just that part, I'm still trying to wrap my head around that part. But anyways, So an original truth, everything and anything could relate to an original truth. What does that mean? Everything and anything. What anything is anything. Anything is like that could be sentient, right? A cat. A cat could be in the presence of some type of energetic truth. And if that energetic truth is not from that cat, it's not going to get that energetic truth. It's going to be more in a field of confusion, right? So the truth, any type of truth for any subject, it's leading us away from a confusion energy and a field of possible distortion, right? Scientifically, right? Or whatever. So the original truth could relate to everything and anything. What does that mean? Some type of original truth or fragmented truth that's of quote unquote benefit because it's revealing something that's false. Anything could relate with that. And what happens with anything or everything relates with some type of original truth. The energetic makeup changes, the karmas change, the mind changes, the body changes, the soul changes, the karmas change, everything changes. And the spiritual war, aside from that particular advanced spiritual phenomena, the old guard spiritual warfare is still occurring aside from you being revealed all of these truths, right? Hello, YouTube. Hello, everybody with their fuck shit messages of this could happen. It's like, aside from all of these truths, however fragmented or original it is, there's still different contexts of the spiritual warfare that I've been blogging since 2018 Facebook recorded. Aside from any expression of a falsehood, right? So like I'll just be like concise with this video. This is like literally the highest truths in the modern age, 2025 and 2026. I'm gonna finish reading these table of contents. I see your shadow government distortion fuck shit in any country standardly. And God is just a tricky ass motherfucker. Ooh, this. So I'm gonna finish reading the table of contents, and then I'll pick a random chapter in the American government book. I'll do the American government book first. 1, 2, 3. Page 227 of the American government. The president. The president. Page 227 and 226 of the book American Government. The president. The White House office. At least since the 1950s, as the influence of the cabinet as a source of advice to the president has declined. So I'll start with page 226. I'm sorry. Staff agencies. You will recall that staff agencies do not carry out policy, but are concerned with gathering information and providing advice. Your staff agencies at the American government do not carry out policy according to this American government book. And it's just, this book is just straight up called American Government, 8th edition. So this is a textbook official book. So this is like, I'm sure it's a recollection of like, you know, more or less of all of the American law, but probably not all of it because there's so many books, right? But this book is called American Government. So staff agencies, you will recall that staff agencies do not carry out policy, but are concerned, but they could maybe have their own black campaign agendas to make some type of information campaign where they're attempting to, right? That's the demonic hysteria within all of these, like, you know, obsolete, outdated, you know, rotten cheese, tomato, potato, fucking computer programs on the internet, such as like just those internet website programs that are just spammy as fuck, right? AI programs that could promise you this, but you have to like spend an arm and a leg. Credit card programs and loan programs and grant programs that say you can do this, but you have to like go through all of this turbulence, right? And there's some type of secret verification data reception to steal your personal data And then they're going to bias verify you, right? The cabinet. The president's cabinet is made up of the heads of the 14 executive departments plus a few other top officials, such as the ambassador to the United Nations. Each of these individuals plays a dual role. He or she is in charge of implementing the president's program in a particular area and at the same time may attempt to influence the president's policies in that area. The cabinet can be seen as being divided into an outer and an inner cabinet. The inner cabinet consists of the secretaries of state, defense, and treasury, and the attorney general. Holders of these positions play a counseling role in relation to the president. For example, the president's foreign policy decisions are a product of frequent and close consultation with the secretary of state. The same could be said for major defense and economic policies. Members of the outer cabinet, the secretaries of labor, agriculture, education, and so forth, have what have been described as advocacy positions. They represent a specific group of citizens and are involved mainly in carrying out policy and providing services for that sector or society. In the early years of the nation's history, the cabinet played a major role in government decision making, governmental decision making. Cabinet meetings were held regularly, as often as twice a week, and all areas of government policy were discussed by everyone present. The cabinet served as an important advisor to the president. In the 20th century, the cabinet has become much less important as an advisory body. Presidents have found it to be too large and unwieldy to be much of value as a source of guidance. So I'll just show the I'll read that later. So the president, Council of Economic Advisors, Council of Environmental Quality, Office of Science and Technology Policy, Office of the United States Trade Representative, Office of Administration, Office of National Drug Control Policy, White House Office, Office of Management and Budget, National Security Council, National Critical Materials Council, and I already said Council on Environmental Quality, and the President. So he has 10 branches. So respectively, in one setting, the president is fucking with 10 branches. And it's quote unquote up to the president, supposedly, and the esoteric, and certain, esoteric predecessors and their spiritual artificial intelligence obviously will have an entirely different take, mind you. But according to this surface level propaganda, or not propaganda, just information, intel, the president has 10 branches. I'm going to read the table of contents of this Foundations of Statistical Natural Language Processing, and I'll be done with this podcast. And all you university teachers, you ain't fucking shit to this original intelligence. And how? Well, read between the lines, motherfucker. Mathematical foundations: elemental probability theory, probability spaces, conditional probability independence, Bayes theorem, random variables, expectation and variance notation, joint and conditional distributions, determining P, standard distributions, Bayesian statistics, exercises, essential information theory, entropy, joint entropy and conditional entropy, mutual information, the noisy channel model, relative entropy of Kullback-Leibler divergence, the relation to language, cross entropy, the entropy of English, perplexity, exercises, chapter 3, linguistic essentials, parts of speech and morphology, nouns and pronouns, words that accompany nouns, determiners and adjectives, verbs, other parts of speech, phrase structure, grammars, dependency, arguments and adjuncts, X theory, phrase structure, ambiguity, semantics and pragmatics, other areas, further reading, exercises, chapter 4, corpus-based work, getting set up, computers, corpora, software, looking at text, low-level formatting issues, tokenization, what is a word, morphology, sentences, marked up data, markup schemes, grammatical tagging, further reading, exercises, section 2, words, chapter 5, collocations, frequency, mean and variance, hypothesis testing, the t-test, hypothesis testing of differences, Pearson's chi-square test, likelihood ratios, mutual information, the notion of collocation, further reading, Chapter 6, statistical inference, n-gram models over sparse data. Chapter 6, bins forming equivalence classes, reliability versus discrimination, n-gram models. And second grade, fourth grade. I was reading to the class. Not necessarily shared with the other circle, but in fourth grade, give me the textbook. I'm reading to the whole class. And my fourth grade teacher might be dead, so he can't testify. Building n-gram models, statistical estimators, maximum likelihood estimation, Laplace's law, Lidstone's law, and the Jeffreys-Perks law, held out estimation, cross-validation, deleted estimation, good turning estimation, briefly noted, combining estimators, simple linear interpolation, cats backing off, KATZ, S, general linear interpolation, briefly noted, language models for Austin, conclude. Chapter 7, word sense disambiguation, methodological preliminaries, supervised and unsupervised learning, pseudo words, upper and lower bounds on performance, supervised disambiguation, Bayesian classification, and information theoretic approach, dictionary based disambiguation, disambiguation based on sense definitions, thesaurus-based disambiguation based on translations in a second language corpus, 1 sense per discourse, 1 sense per collocation, unsupervised disambiguation, what is a word sense? Chapter 8, lexical acquisition, evaluation measures, verb subcategorization, attachment ambiguity, Hindle and Ruth, general remarks on PP attachment, selectional preferences, semantic similarity, vector space measures, probabilistic measures, the role of lexical acquisition in statistical NLP,